Welcome to part 3 of our dining room table build. Now if you haven't seen the first video where I made the top for this dining room table, click here. And if you didn't see the second video where I made the base for this dining room table, click here. Now if you're all caught up, make sure you stick around because in this video we're going to apply some finish to our dining room table. Now I used 2 finishes on this dining room table. Now the first finish is a Danish oil. Now the reason I used a Danish oil is because, well, oils, they penetrate deeply into the wood structure, and if you've got any interesting grain or nice figure throughout the piece, it really does make it sort of pop and show through. Now the second finish I used was a polyurethane, and the reason I used that is that it's very durable, and for a dining room table you really do need a finish that's going to last a long time. Now as Danish oil is an oil varnish blend, there's no problem with the 2 finishes sort of working with one another. There's not going to be any issues in the long run. But what we do have is a relatively long curing time for the Danish oil. So last Wednesday I was in the workshop and I actually did the first coat of finish, which is the Danish oil. So I applied a nice light coat to all the surfaces, and then just yesterday I came in and I gave everything a good sanding and started applying the polyurethane. Okay, so as we have got a Danish oil coat on here, it shouldn't absorb as much varnish, or poly I should say, as it would if it was just raw timber, but it will still drink in quite a lot. So we're going to put a fairly heavy coat down and then just rub off any excess. Okay, so now that I've got a nice light coat over the entire tabletop here, I'm just getting down nice and low and looking across this raked light to see if there's any sort of puddles, so high spots, or any bits that I've missed, and so far it looks pretty good. Now the base is a bit trickier because unlike the tabletop, which is a flat surface, we've got things which get in the way. So we've got corners, so we don't want to get a build up of finish in those corners because then it will look a little bit, well, bad. We've got corners in the insides and things like that. But really the plan of attack for me here is I'll finish all of these inside faces here, because that doesn't really matter if there's a bit of a build up in some of these corners, because after all it's under the tabletop, it's never going to be seen. And then I'll move on to these outer faces where I'll have to put a little bit more care into getting a nice even coat into these corners here and making sure that the legs and all that are finished evenly. So that's what I'll do here. So really I like to take it one component at a time. So here I'll do this stretcher, I'll do the next stretcher. Now because I did these stretches in these corners, the inside of these rails have now got a bit of a build up of poly, so that's where I'll attack now. So I'll sort of feather it in and just hope for the best. So the next part of this base I'll approach is the inside of these legs, because as you can see from doing the insides of these rails, we now have finish on the inside of these legs. So we don't want that to tack up before we get around to it, so why not do it now? So here we want to feather it in. The last 2 places I attack are the rails and the remaining 2 faces of those legs. So this is where it sort of becomes fun because we get to finish it all off. And just as I get around to the legs, I'll also lift up the base a little bit and just make sure I get a little bit of finish on the underside of those feet. But we'll do more of that once we've got the second coat on. So now the second and third coats were applied in exactly the same way. So we wipe it on following the grain, so going the same direction as the grain, and we always just check with a low raking light for any build up or any spots that we've missed. Now the important thing to note is that we sand between coats. So between the first and second coat, we sanded everything with 320 grit, and this is just sanding by hand, no power sanding here. And then between the second and third coat, and it's only the actual top and the outside edges of the base that received a third coat, we sanded with 600 grit. We've still got one more coat to give to the top of this table here, but I think you've seen enough to understand the process. So tomorrow I'll come in, I'll sand the top to 600 or 800 grit once again, and then I'll do the third and final coat of polyurethane. The only other thing that I might consider doing to this is once it's fully cured, so in a fortnight or two, I might rub in a bit of a furniture wax, so something like a beeswax blend or something like that, just to sort of give it a bit of additional protection. But really, with a polyurethane, that's not always necessary. Now, in the next video, we're going to actually make the matching bench seats for this, which is, in all honesty, the exact same process as making this table, just scaled down and not quite as wide. So there's not going to be a whole lot of new stuff in there, but hey, if I've got time, I might go into a few more details and hopefully clear up some of the questions I've been getting asked. So like always, thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel because I make weekly woodworking videos. So if you subscribe, you'll be notified on your YouTube screen thing, whatever that's called. On top of that, I'm also on Facebook, so head over to facebook.com/JordsWoodShop and give my page a like over there because I do a lot of photos and things along the way of these builds, and it also documents some things which I don't shoot for the website. So if you want to stay up to date with everything JordsWoodShop, why not like that page? Now, just a side note, the plans for this table are almost finished and ready for you guys to download if you are interested in building along, or you just want to help support the show and sort of keep the electricity on. They will be available probably early to mid next week. So once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week when we make these matching bench seats.